How in the world can we be so low? We're below 100. Several of these. I mean, this zucchini looks gorgeous. Let's pause. Now tell me how in the world it can grow when it's down at 34 ppms. How about this beautiful watermelon? Big, heavy watermelon there. Another one over there growing. Doesn't look too bad. One in there. Again, way below 100. I've been eating tomatoes off this all summer. It's just prolific. Okay, this is the start of the show. My very dirt cheap TDS EC meter. These go for less than $10 on Amazon. I'll put a link below if you're interested, but generally they work pretty well. However, as you can see from the first part of the video there, it is not working correctly. The readings are way too low in this case. But the plants are growing great, so I know there's plenty of nutrients in there. So at first I was a little bit baffled, but I'm going to take you through my journey to get this problem solved. This is going to involve changing out the battery, checking the connections, making a calibration solution, recalibrating the device, and then testing it. So let's go on our journey. Hopefully, sharing my processes with you, you won't have to go through the pain and suffering that I went through to get this thing working. So before you go crazy, try to calibrate this thing, always check the battery. I got through 3 batteries before I figured out that was a part of the problem here. And you can see when you look down in there, there is a little bit of corrosion, so you want to clean that up as well. These batteries are called CR2016s, and they're 3 volts. And they can go bad, so I would recommend that if you haven't used it all winter, put a fresh one in. That might save you a bunch of headaches. So imagine these electrodes here need to take that 3 volts and run it through some solution with ions on it in it, so it can transfer the electrical current from one electrode to the other through those ions, and that's how it measures. Now if the battery becomes low and it's no longer putting out 3 volts, there'll be less voltage and current going across those electrodes, and less current would register as lower conductivity and lower values on your meter, and you might get artificially low reads. I think that's what was happening in my situation. So let's get that battery out and show you how to clean that up. So it's kind of down in there. You might have to get a tweezers to pull it out. I don't think you're going to be able to do it with your fingers. Okay, the first step is just to make sure the battery itself looks good. Check both sides for corrosion, dirt, salt, any other precipitants that you can clean off. And then check, of course, the connections for the battery. And you can see here, this one's still in bad shape. Even though I've already taken a file to it and tried to get some of that rust off, I'm going to now hit it with a little vinegar. We'll just start out with a Q-tip to begin with. Okay, I think that's a lot better, so let's put that battery back in. Make sure that you have a nice strong signal on the screen. If it's only displaying half of it, or the signal's weak, or it kind of looks like it goes in and out, it's a sign of a weak battery. And again, a weak battery would mean a weaker current across these electrodes, and so you're going to get artificially low reads. That wasn't the whole problem, because when I did put the new battery in, it still was miscalibrated. So let me show you how to calibrate these things. Okay, I've got some tap water here. Let me show you how it works. You go ahead and put it in, only up to that level right there. The notch is where you're supposed to submerge it. You don't want to get the electronics inside wet. I would not play around with the parts per million if you just hit shift. You can get parts per million, but start to read things in EC. It just makes your life so much easier because different meters are calibrated differently in terms of parts per million using a different conversion factor, but the EC is the same across all meters. So use EC if you can, because it's standardized across different meters, where the parts per million have a conversion factor of 500 or 700. This meter has a conversion factor of 500 because it's calibrated off salt water, not potassium chloride. Anyway, to calibrate it, all you have to do is hold that shift button in for 3 to 5 seconds. See what happens. It starts blinking. Now you can go up or down, and if you want to raise that value, because you know this water is calibrated at 500, you would hit this bottom button. If you want to lower it, you'd hit the top button. So it's counterintuitive. It's reversed in a sense, but that's kind of how you do it. Now when you're happy with your reading, you just hit shift and it'll go back to its reading state. Okay guys, let's make our calibration solution here. Let's start out with the 1 gram per liter concentration, and that's equivalent to 1,000 parts per million of the sodium chloride we're going to use. Just regular old rock salt. Any salt should do. And since I'm only going to use 250 mils to mix it in, I'm going to divide that liter by 4 in terms of volume. So instead of 1 gram, I'll be using 0.25 grams. So just check this. This is 0.25. And I just dumped it into 250 mils of distilled water, which has an EC of 0. I just checked it prior. Alright guys, let me show you how this works. This is our calibration solution that we made, 1 gram per liter of sodium chloride or table salt. Since we put 1 gram per liter, that produces 1,000 parts per million. And we don't like to use parts per million, but we know our meter converts that number into EC with a conversion factor of 500. But what we want to do is calibrate this meter so that it's right at 1,000 ppms. So let's go ahead and, so if we shift it, you can see there's your microsiemens. Remember, the decimal point should be right after the 2 if you're going to use millisiemens per centimeter. We want to get that down to 2. So what we're going to do is hold shift just for a few seconds and then let go, and it'll start blinking. And to increase it, you would hit the bottom button, and to decrease this number, you would hit the top button. It's kind of backwards, but this is how it works. So you get down to 2, an EC of 2 millisiemens per centimeter squared. Oops, I went too far. All right, close enough, huh? It seems to do increments of 2. So we'll just stop there and hit shift, and it'll stop the blinking. Okay, now it's locked. Oh, see how it jumps around a little bit? So if we want to do it one more time, hold it down. Should start blinking, and then we want to go up, so we hit the bottom button. Okay, now remember, it's going to jump around a bit. You're not going to get it perfect. Pretty good though, huh? All right, so that's how you calibrate. Now it's ready to go. It's calibrated. All right, guys, if you order these on Amazon, you'll get a package like this. I'll put a link down below, but you get 3 parts in a pack. You get 2 5-pound bags, one of Masterblend, and one of calcium nitrate, and then you get 1 bag of Epsom salt. 5-gallon recipe. 12 grams of Masterblend, 2 teaspoons. 6 grams of magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt. And then in part B, you're going to put 12 grams of calcium nitrate. I just want to explain what we're going to do. We were going to make a 5-gallon solution in distilled water, but I didn't have it, that much distilled water. So then I said, oh, I could make a full gallon, but again, I only have a gallon. So I thought, I'll make a 100 milliliter solution. But these numbers are just too small on this scale. It only goes down to 2 decimals. And 0.06 is not very accurate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up a step of 10 from here to here and go back to this number. 0.63, 0.13, and 0.63 again for the Masterblend, magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt, and calcium nitrate. Okay, so I've got my Masterblend here, and I got my 0.31 of magnesium sulfate here, and I'm just going to go ahead and do the final one. So what I do is I just put this on, I turn it on and off, I tear it to 0, and then I go ahead and measure out 0.63 of this calcium nitrate. So I'm going to put that here. And now I've got my 3 parts. I can put the scale away. Let's go ahead and mix our 3 different products here in a mill of distilled water and see what we get. Alright, those are stirred down, dissolved well with a clean spoon. And now finally our last component, kind of part B, the calcium nitrate. Let's see what we got. So we're right around 800, perfect. Parts per million, and that's exactly what we're supposed to be getting. So this could actually now become a calibration solution. Our goal was to get close to 800. Now if we want to shift it and just see the EC, remember the conversion factor is 500. There's our EC. So Masterblend's going to give you a 1.6 EC in millisiemens or 1631 in microsiemens per centimeter. But we're going to use EC, this is 1.6. Everybody seems to go with MS per CMs. Okay, what I'd like to do is get some different readings at different temperatures. 78.2, we have an EC of 1.924 millisiemens per centimeter. So let's put this liquid solution in the microwave just for a second and see what we can get. Okay, we're back out of the freezer here for a few minutes. Third reading we can get here. Temperature somewhere 98, 99. Let me go ahead and turn it off, put it back in the fridge. And the 4th reading, I've got it now in the freezer a little longer. It is going lower as we get cooler. So let's go a little cooler on the 5th reading here. Let's go back in the freezer a little bit longer. Reading 5. All our readings are usually about within 0.2 millisiemens, regardless if we're 74 degrees Fahrenheit or 98 degrees Fahrenheit. So it doesn't seem like it's a huge factor. Again, I think these meters are more for eyeballing things, but I'm going to put it back in the freezer a little longer and we'll get a 6th reading at a colder temperature and just see what happens. 6th reading, 1.9. 7th data point. Okay, this is by far not a perfect experiment, but I just wanted to get some data points so I could eyeball if there seems to be an effect with temperature on EC readings. One source I read mentioned that EC changes about 1.1% per each degree Fahrenheit off room temperature, which is defined as 25 degrees Celsius or 78 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a lot. However, most meters nowadays have something called ATC, automatic temperature compensation, built into them. I wasn't sure if this meter did or not, but I think it probably does, because you can see here the red line is the change that I would have expected across our data points with temperature, but the blue line is actually the change that we saw, and it's not as dramatic. It's pretty well stabilized. So I believe there is ACT in this meter. And I believe that a small change in temperature will have very minimal effect on your EC readings or decision points. And I don't use this very often. So this begs the question, do you really need one of these meters? Well, if things aren't making sense, you probably ought to pull it out and try to figure out what's going on. It's just another tool to use. You don't absolutely have to have a meter, but my thoughts are, if you're growing something like lettuce, you probably don't need a meter. You just follow the recipes, right? It's very easy. It's a crop that's only going to grow for about 6 weeks, and then you harvest it. Maybe you can get it to go longer than that if you pick the leaves frequently, but it's a very easy crop. Doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance. Cracky styles works great. However, tomatoes are a little more complicated. They like to really have the right conditions. Again, at first you just put the fertilizer in and let them go, but as they get bigger, they start using a lot of fluid. So I think of it like this. Let me show you guys running. All right, guys, when you go online and you just type in, give me some EC values for various hydroponic plants, recommended EC values for growth, you'll see all sorts of numbers and ranges. Some of these, like tomato, will depend on, are you in the early growth phase or are you in the fruiting phase? So it does go up over time. However, it's confusing. There's just so many different variables and a big range of numbers. So when I'm making up that Masterblend, I'm probably going to get a 1.6 EC. Kind of falls in most of these ranges. Something like lettuce, it might actually be on the high end. But anyway, take these values and you kind of extrapolate them to the midpoints. The ECs are going to kind of be in these ranges for most of the season. Again, lettuce, I mean, my city water is close to 0.5. It's probably 0.3. And so you kind of start off with all these plants kind of at a lower range. They're going to grow fine in the vegetative phase. As they start to get bigger and start producing flowers and fruit, they're going to want probably a little more fertilizer. So bottom line is, in the spring, you don't have to really go crazy checking your EC meter. You just put it in and see how they do. With all the sunlight, the extra salts from the city water that's in there, that's in addition to this, with rain that mixes the dirt in from your lids, perhaps if you're using those 27-gallon totes, leaf fragments, root sloughing, somehow this EC seems to just do fine. You don't even have to check it. It just everything seems to grow in the spring, in the summer. And through the summer, as you see your plants are starting to use up some of the solution, you're probably going to get your hose out and top it off either with rainwater or city water. And that's going to dilute your fertilizer. But at the same time, as the plants grow, and especially if you're doing something like cracky method, the fertilizer that's already in the tank will naturally concentrate as the water drops, and the total volume of water is less in each bin. So there's kind of this cycle of topping it off, diluting it a little bit, maybe adding a little calcium magnesium to your water in terms of hard water. But by the time late summer rolls around, you're really not exactly sure where you're at. Now, if the plants look great and they're thriving, you might not have to do anything. And so a lot of people don't even need a meter. They just kind of eyeball it and say, hey, I think they've been out here for a month. It's time to give them a little more fertilizer. But by the time late summer comes, it becomes more difficult to be sure what's going on. Is it over-concentrated or is it too dilute? Why are my leaves looking yellow? Why are things not going well? And so that's the time that you might pull out your EC or pH meter and try to figure out what's going on. Do I need more water or do I need more fertilizer? So if you ask me, the meters are more for the fruiting plants. The lettuce is just almost too easy to grow. You don't even really need it. You can almost use just cracky method, use water to top it off, and if they look a little anemic, throw a little fertilizer in. It's just almost eyeballing. It works great for lettuce. But again, if I was checking each bin all the time, that would just suck up so much time. So I think of it as a tool that you've got available if you need it, if you want to try to figure things out. But in terms of putting your plants outside in DWC or cracky type containers, I haven't seen that I've really needed this on a regular basis. It's more for problem solving and troubleshooting. Okay guys, it's been a few days since I've checked this. At the beginning of the video, when we were way under 100 parts per million, which is 0.2 millisiemens. And now we're going to come back and check these again with our meter recalibrated. So let's put it on microsiemens and just pretend there's that decimal point there, right after that leftward digit, right between the first and the second digit there. And again, we're shooting for 1.6 for a full dose Masterblend freshly made fertilizer. But you can see this tomato plant is pretty concentrated in here. Beautiful tomatoes. And we're now down at 1.4 EC. I've been refilling these, maybe up to a third or a half, as I see they continue to suck up the water. But I've been using rainwater from my IBC tote, but I think I'm going to switch over there and use city water to give a little more calcium and magnesium for the rest of the season. Let's check a couple more of these bins here. Beautiful tomatoes, huh? Alright, this is the second one. EC of 1.2, right? 1.3 actually, rounded up to 1.4. Okay. Again, pretty concentrated down there into the day here, but you can see there's not much in there. I gotta give them a refill every kind of We're gonna perish here. Lack of water. There's the third one. 1.9. Again, I'm not gonna go to extremes here to change anything. I just wanted to kind of know where we're at. Like I said, all these need a little dilute the top off. This one's got some water in it. Too late in the day for my solar bubblers to be working. This one's about 1.3 EC. So I'm not going to really use those readings to do anything special. I'm just going to go ahead and put some city water in those instead of rainwater, just to get that extra calcium and magnesium. And as I remove the tomatoes, I'll hope to get some more lettuce planted here. You know, we still got a little bit of time left in the season. Maybe I can get one more crop. Now these were planted not too long ago, and the EC on these is about 0.9. So this lettuce is running at. And it's doing okay. What if I didn't check it? Probably wouldn't make a huge difference, would it? Here's basically what they looked like a couple weeks ago. This is the last one that was planted at that stage. So I just empty those out and put them in a bucket, remove all the dirt, and just plant them in those little yellow net cups. I planted some new ones just in case, so I always have seedlings. We'll see if those can be put to use before the end of the season. They like cold weather, so maybe I'll get away with it. Maybe I'll use some of those for another month or two. Alright, so finally let's go up and check our zucchini, watermelon, and tomato up here and just see what they're doing. These plants are getting kind of old. Hope you see the water levels really dropped. I haven't attended to them in a few days. Remember we were below 100 before we calibrated our meter again? Now we got 0.6. Still a little low, right? How about this watermelon? Quite a bit higher at 1.1 or 1.2 if you round it up. And our trusty super sweet tomato that we love so much. And I just picked a whole bowl more of these, a huge bowl. Well, he's way down there. Look at that. I need to get him some water bad. But let's see what the EC is. 1.1. So, to get an idea, these readings are now accurate. And maybe we can use this information to coax these plants along for another month or so before it just gets too cold for them. Maybe that's part of the reason why the zucchini is not thriving. It just doesn't have enough food. I mean, it's been through a lot of stress. This is the zucchini we had on the root rot series. We are getting some brand new growth down here. Some fresh fruit. Maybe we'll get a couple more zucchinis out of it before it's goodbye. I think we'll try to get a future video out on how to use pH meter and possibly pH strips. So tune back in soon, and again, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate your viewership. And I wish you all a great day or great evening whenever you're watching this. Take care.